and welcome to the Two Gals and a Mic podcast. I'm your host, Sue Kerver, and today I'm chatting with Hanna Finissi, the founder of SoulTrustIgnite, a business focused on igniting inner knowing through introspective self-discovery and interactive community connection. As a creative healer and coach, Hanna is on a mission to help others live their own version of an ignited life from the inside out. Hanna, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sue. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I am excited that you're here because you have such an interesting story, which I love to start with. So let's talk about your origin story. Tell us about your journey from Boston through the deconstruction of parts of your life to somehow landing where you are now, where you're making well-being a tangible and an attainable goal.
Our origin story has everything to do with who we are now. My origin story has everything to do with what I am up to now, why me and my husband are now choosing to live in Montana. So the abridged version is that I grew up outside of Boston, Massachusetts in a large and loving family. I'm one of 5 siblings. Both my parents are also one of 5. So we've got like extended family galore. And I grew up in a really charming childhood. I had access to amazing education. I had access to great mentors, teachers, role models, sports, financial abundance, and was really lucky with all that I was afforded. With that, living in the Northeast comes a certain type of energy of high achievement, perfectionism, climbing the ladder. A lot of those things were very present in my life. Without even knowing it, you just learn what you need to do to survive, to receive love and validation. And for me, a lot of that was academics and athletics. So I attached myself to those identities pretty robustly. Fast forward to age 28, post-COVID. I had gone to play Division I lacrosse. I moved out to Denver for my first job. And then I was back home, right? I landed quote unquote back home to Boston and was doing what I thought that I should be doing to live a happy life, and started to try to piece my life together from what I thought would make me happy. And actually that recipe made me realize how unhappy I was, that I had this huge heaviness sitting on my heart. Reflectively, I was in a really depressive state and I was just couldn't seem to shake this heaviness. And so I dove back into meditation, energy work, hired my own coaches because I knew that my journey was going to be from the inside out. All right. I had tried on all these external things. They weren't working. So I chose to tune in and really dedicated to the path of rediscovery, who I am on the inside, beneath all these layers of roles and identities. And that's the life that I dedicated myself to. That's the life that I now dedicate myself to supporting others with. That's why we love the lifestyle of Montana, easy access to the outdoors, and a different energy of freedom and permission to be exactly as you want to be.
How did you decide upon Montana, or did it choose you?
It's funny. My husband, Anthony, he has this photograph of Montana with a big moose on it. And it says just Montana, huge across the bottom. That thing has been like following us around every single different place that we've lived after college. We were actually living in Maine during COVID, and we were having breakfast one morning and just had this like aha of, wow, we are really missing out west. We want to go back out there and start our lives. together somewhere new. Started the crazy journey of packing up our whole life in a U-Haul and whatever else didn't fit, didn't come, and landed in Manhattan, Montana. We had a couple of qualifications we were looking for, like access to an airport, access to nature and things we love doing. We both were working remote jobs, so I would say it was a combination of both.
So here you are post-COVID, and you're doing this physical journey from the Northeast back out West. You're doing this excavation of self where you're doing a very much another type of journey. And then you start on this third component of your journey, which is launching your own business. And you launch Soul Trust Ignite. Explain the meaning behind the name of your business. Why Soul Trust Ignite?
It's so intentionally designed as a 3-part methodology. Bits and pieces of it came together as I finished up my certification program, and I'm kind of weaving together, okay, what was so supportive for me in my personal development journey, and what was really helpful for me from my coaching experiences and certification programs. It was like so tangled up, but it really was so simple in this 3-part process of soul, which is getting to know who you are underneath all of the layers of ego, of hats you wear, of career, of family, of identities that have kept you safe. Trust is the middle part of that journey where you really get to build a relationship of loving trust with this version of yourself that might feel a little bit raw and new to you because it's been through so many layers of conditioning over time. And then Ignite is part 3. And Ignite is all about taking those brave and bold aligned actions so your internal experience matches your external reality. Igniting the life that you dream about, because whatever you dream about is already in your conscious space to create. And it just takes some bold action to get there.
You coach and you design and you facilitate workshops and introduce and integrate well-being practices to do those 3 things. But I'm sure, as you've already sort of prefaced, you had to go through a lot of training in order to hone your skills to do these things. What did this include, and how has that impacted your pursuits within the holistic health arena?
Ironically enough, the first yoga and meditation retreat that I went on, I was a sophomore in college. I had just quit the Division I lacrosse team. I didn't want to go take a fancy internship in New York with the rest of my friends. So I dragged my mom out to California to go to the Chopra Center, and we did a meditation and yoga retreat. We did that, and fast forward to 2019, I started my total well-being coaching certification through the Chopra Center. That was a 3-part program. The first part was getting your health and Ayurvedic certification. The second portion was getting your meditation teaching certification. And then in order to do the well-being coaching, you had to finish those 2, and then you could move into the coaching certification program, which was really great because it gave me one idea of what a structured coaching program could look like. I learned a lot about myself continuously through that process. We did a lot of practice coaching on each other and really grew throughout the process.
So I love that you gave yourself permission to be curious and really dive into a space that you were unfamiliar with. And as you did that, did you have any fear with it? And if you did, how did you navigate through that?
I think it was really scary starting a business and trusting that it was the right direction for me, hoping that it would be successful, coming face to face with some of my own limiting beliefs along the way. In so many ways, what I have learned is not to pretend the fear isn't there, but to integrate the fear, ask the fear, what are you here to teach me? And navigate forward with some brave and bold actions, because I do believe that this business is part of my purpose and part of my life trajectory and journey.
I'm glad that you brought that idea of purpose up because I've had a number of conversations on the podcast about finding purpose and about using your unique talents and gifts to live your purpose fully. You said that we need to stop outsourcing who we are. How do we create this shift?
It is the most important thing in the world to get to know yourself, maybe get to know yourself again and then again and then again and again and again. Whether we had an amazing childhood or a really challenging childhood or somewhere in between, we have learned behaviors. Ages 0 to 7, your brain is in the theta brainwave state. That's like the spongy, super susceptible state. And so everything is filtered. We follow the breadcrumbs of where we're receiving love and validation and praise and belonging. And so the importance of taking a step back and saying, wow, what if this identity has been built by me? And what if this identity has been built by validation from others? And that's really hard to pull out the pieces because it's sometimes a really fine line, but it's so important to spend some time in that space, picking out the weeds of, okay, this is true to me, and this is how I'm choosing to navigate life forward. This is no longer true to me, and so I'm choosing to leave this pattern behind, leave this identity behind, and grow into something that feels more unique to my soul.
You talk about picking out the weeds so that you can move forward. And I would imagine that part of this includes creating a practice surrounded by mindfulness and meditation. These are core elements of your work. So, why are these principles so important? And how can we, as busy people who say, hey, we don't have time, I don't have time to sit and meditate or to do these mindfulness practices, how can we incorporate these into our everyday lives?
I love these kind of people who challenge me, who say, you know what, Hannah, like I just can't do it. I don't have the time. I have a crazy busy mind. I can't meditate. It's not for me. So my approach is that everyone deserves time with themselves every single day. Whether you call it a meditation practice or not, that is so unimportant to me. Even in my business, I considered calling it something different because meditation can have such a visceral reaction from people. When I'm teaching meditation or when I'm facilitating meditation, I always say full permission to personalize the practice. Make it work for you, for your unique lifestyle, for your unique needs. You can sit any way you want. It doesn't have to be a 20-minute practice 2 times a day, but can you give yourself that intentional time to spend with yourself every single day? Whether it's 3 deep breaths and a moment of gratitude in your bed when you wake up, or whether it's 20-minute meditation practice followed by a 30-minute journaling reflection followed by a walk in nature, like that's great too, but sometimes not so accessible.
So, meditation and mindfulness are just a couple of the things that you focus on and you do. Tell us what else is in your tool bag? What else do you focus on with your business?
So, meditation and mindfulness is the foundational cornerstone practice of everything that I do in my business, whether I'm facilitating a session with a one-on-one client or I'm leading a well-being workshop for a corporate client or leading a morning meditation on a retreat. It comes into play in everything, but I also love working in groups of people. I'm a trained experiential learning designer and facilitator. So that's where the workshops come into play. I love working with teams of people and really allowing the energy amongst the group to inform how we move forward because we can help each other in so many ways that we don't even know about.
And through teamwork and collaboration, you've been able to build a body of work that creates a multi-pronged approach to inside out well-being. You talked a little bit about this idea of inside out. What is inside out well-being and how do we actually achieve it?
The inside out approach really speaks to the SoulTrustIgnite methodology and getting clear on the internal experience that we want to experience on a day-to-day basis. How do you want to feel when you wake up? What is your desire? Getting really clear on that roadmap so that we can use that roadmap to then mirror our external environment so that we can create alignment throughout of our soul, our personality, and our aligned actions.
Do you have a concrete example or maybe a success story that you've seen throughout your time, which would illustrate what you're talking about with Inside Out?
I think a really great one is speaking to the experience of many of the women who attended my retreat in May. But one woman in particular had never done much personal development work, but was curious. And she had tried on a lot of external band-aid fixes, right? She'd tried to change her diet. She'd tried on all the different fitness regimes. She'd tried this. And, she was like so knowledgeable of all the things that we could try. She was really excited and curious to dive into, okay, this isn't working, right? None of these things are changing. She really dove straight on in. And that's the piece that's fun for me because I'm not controlling what's happening with this woman's access of her subconscious or what's in her limiting beliefs, but I'm just providing the tools, the foundation, and the guidance. One of my breathwork journeys that I facilitated on one of the last days, she was just crying and crying and crying. You could tell she was like, I have never experienced such healing and relief from the inside out. Nothing about her external experience changed, but everything about her internal experience, about her mindset, about things that were keeping her stuck, about relationships that she was able to forgive was so hugely powerful for her. That's just one example of the benefits of doing the internal work so that you can release what is holding you back and step into future evolutions of self.
I was going to ask you, where is this person at now, several months later? And has she been able to sustain the practices, the mindset, the healing, all of those wonderful things that happened within the environment of the retreat?
You don't ever go backwards once you are able to like break through an experience like that, but you are responsible for maintaining. And that's the piece that can be really challenging for people. When I'm working with them in a one-on-one 3-month container, it's like, yes, so much growth. And we're talking almost every day and we're seeing all of these powerful shifts and transformations, I create virtual opportunities every few months to bring people back together, to revisit some of the breakthroughs that we had and whatever is coming up in our worlds right now, because things will continue to come up and we'll continue to need to dedicate some time and space to them.
Well, Hannah, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about entrepreneurship. So, you're in this wellness and coaching space, which can offer consumers a lot of options and also be quite crowded. Why did you choose to pursue your own practice, start your own business, instead of linking up with something or someone that was already established?
A combination of so many things. I really believe strongly in the SoulTrustIgnite methodology. I think it's unique and different. I think there is a lot out there that is kind of fancy manifestation rhetoric and kind of skips some of the really important steps of soul excavation and trust, right? This piece of trust I think is hugely missing in the wellness space. You can't just go from soul to ignited action because there's no safety in the middle. You need to create that container for trust and safety. So that felt really important to me. I love collaborating. I love working with other people's. If I can co-facilitate a workshop, that is always hugely exciting for me. That's the one piece of entrepreneurship that I actually really miss, being in conscious collaboration and team building. And starting my own business felt like the right thing and still feels like the right thing, but I'm always excited about a good collaboration.
So, in navigating your business journey, have you found your superpower?
My superpower is building relationships, building meaningful relationships. I really have leaned into that as an entrepreneur, as someone running a business, because I think it's really important and it's really soul filling for me. I was really lucky to fall into this amazing petri dish of women entrepreneurs in wellness. There's such a cool energy here where women are so enthusiastic and supportive of each other. And that is what lights me up. Relationship building at the foundation is key to so much.
So, that's one aspect that you've been able to hone in on that you know is an integral part of how you run your business. What's one thing that you wish that you had known about owning a business or being an entrepreneur that you had to find out the hard way?
There are a couple of those lessons for sure. This is my first business, and so you just learn everything as you go. It's the craziest journey of experiential learning in motion. I didn't know what an LLC was until I had to go to the bank and set one up. I didn't know how to file my taxes until I had to go through that process. I didn't know what QuickBooks was or how to categorize my expenses until I sat down and wrestled through it. There's so much that is really overwhelming as a business owner. That's where it's important for me to always stay like really close to my why, stay close to why I'm doing what I'm doing, and as much as I can, lean on others for support in different areas of expertise that are not mine, and then grant myself some grace as I learn along the way.
Hannah, what is your why?
My why is to ignite my own soul's voice and get even closer to my truth so that I can bring that energy and support to others.
As you've been leaning into your why, has there been anything that you've discovered that has surprised you Have you had a profound aha moment?
It's interesting. I'm looking up at my bulletin board right now, which has the quote on it that has inspired my business, which is don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it because what the world needs are people who have come alive. And that's Howard Thurman. I couldn't tell you one specific aha moment, but what I can tell you is that every day I try to get closer and closer to what makes me come alive. And you have to sometimes realize what is draining you to realize what makes you come alive and what you can do more of, which is when I'm like in the work, when I am in the middle of a one-on-one session and my client is having a breakthrough. It's when I'm leading a breathwork journey. It's when I'm hosting a corporate retreat and people are crying because they realize that they've been working with each other for 15 years and actually don't know each other. Those are the moments for me when I fully trust that I'm on the right path.
So, being on the right path as a successful entrepreneur, what words of wisdom would you offer other female business owners who are either starting or growing their own businesses?
Don't do it alone. Don't stay in your loneliness and think you have to figure everything out in isolation and then come out on the other side with a polished product because number one, that's just not true. And number two, there are so many other entrepreneurs out there who are ready to step in and witness you, are ready to step in and support you, are ready to step in and say, oh, here's the person that I use for my taxes. You should call them. That was really important for me, especially being someone who thrives in community. Being a solopreneur, I had to find that community. So I had to join business coaching containers where I was learning and I was growing my business. I joined Sky Oro, the women's wellness entrepreneur community in Bozeman, and met amazing women who are always willing to step in and support you.
Okay, Hannah, we've talked about the past. We've just spent some time in the present. Let's talk about the future and your windshield view. What is next for you? Do you have any audacious goals or big things that you're driving towards?
Right now, I am pretty hyper focused on completing my breathwork teaching and facilitation certification. What that looks like is I went through a breathwork certification course and finished all my online training, learned so much about the insane power of the breath and how we can use the breath to support us every single day. So now I'm in the process of facilitating practice. I call them breathwork journeys for people, which are the opportunity to dive into the subconscious, do some rewiring, and ignite from there.
So, when you consider next steps, how do you know what to chase and how do you know what to let go of?
For me, it comes down to where my energy is pulling me and where my energy is feeling depleted, and really being intentional with those two areas. My group meditation program is something that really fuels me, and I'm getting ready to launch the next round of that. It's following those breadcrumbs of energy expansion or energy depletion and trusting that like my inner compass can distinguish between the two.
So, would you say that your inner compass is akin to intuition? I'm just wondering, how does intuition play into your decision making process?
It is whatever you want to call it, your access to higher power, your soul, your intuition, your gut instincts. I always love to describe intuition as non urgent and non emotional. So it really just is a knowing. It's not something that requires immediate action. It's not something that has an immediate emotional trigger, but it is a sense of, oh, okay, I see the lighthouse. I'm just going to keep moving in that direction.
One last question for you. Is there anything that I did not ask about that you wanted to chat about?
Yeah, I just want to double click reinforce that point of avoiding loneliness and isolation in entrepreneurship. It's a really easy thing, especially if you're operating in a virtual space. We need human connection. That's why we're here. So, finding those meaningful human connections is so, so important.
Well, thank you, Hannah, for holding safe space so we can find and connect with our inner wisdom and with each other. Trusting ourselves so we can learn, grow, and eventually ignite is not always an easy process, but you make it feel very achievable. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with Hannah or learn more about the offerings, I've included the link to the website in the show notes. So be sure to share this episode with someone whom you know needs to ignite, and then join me again next week for another episode of the Two Gals and a Mic podcast, where we will meet another amazing woman who's doing extraordinary things. I'll see you then.